Hello, my main friends. I'm Angel Natsun, and I will present about conversational analysis in chapter 7. And first, I will explain about. I will present point A about conversation. What is conversational and what is conversational analysis? Conversation is the impromptu, spontaneous, everyday exchange of talk between two people or more. According to Levinson in 1983, conversation may be taken to be that familiar, predominant kind of talk in which two or more participants freely alternate in speaking, which generally occurs as outside specific institutional settings like religious services, law courts, classrooms, and the like. The meaning of conversation in simply way is a conversation, a dialogue between two or more people. Next, I will present about what is conversational analysis. Conversational analysis is an approach to study natural conversation in a discourse. It is a way of thinking about and analyzing the pragmatics of ordinary conversation. It's focusing on the interactive and practical construction of everyday interchange. Conversational analysis has three basic propositions according to Rusufuori in 2005. First, basic proposition is everyday conversation between friends and acquaintances as basic, elementary form of talk in interaction them with various. And second basic proposition is core understanding relevant in all conversational analysis research, such as turn taking, sequence organization, preference organizations, repair, participation framework, which maintains of intersubjectivity through sequences. And the last basic proposition of conversational analysis is everyday detail potential relevant. Analysts look for the participants' own interpretation of the ongoing activity. Hard to decide beforehand what is relevant. For example, silence in conversation. That was explanation about what is conversation and what is conversational analysis. And now and next, I will explain about point B. Point B is about turn taking and the 7 subtitle of turn taking. Turn taking is important in conversation in which two or more people take turn to speak. In a conversation, in order to take turn in speaking, speakers simply wait for the speaker to stop and then talk. But the gaps between turns are generally too short. For this to be the case, sometimes they are just microseconds in length, and on average, they are no longer than a few tenths of a second. The simple way to understand what is turn taking is a turn is the time when a speaker is talking, and turn taking is the skill of knowing when to start and when to finish a turn in a conversation. Next, I will explain about 7 subtitles in turn taking, and I will explain them one by one. First, I will explain about turn construction. Turn construction. In turns constructions, turns can be made up of either a single word, a phrase, a clause, or a full sentence. They are not syntactic or semantic units, but generally pragmatic units. The recognizable potential end of a turn is called in uh, conversational analysis a transition relevance place, or can be abbreviated in TRP. A TRP may be identified by a change in the pitch or volume of the voice, the end of syntactic unit of language, a momentary silence, or some sort of body motions. It is stated by Singer in 1991. Transitions between speakers usually occurs at such a point, and it is at a TRP that speakers employ the conversational techniques that conversational analysis aims to discover. Next, I will explain about second subtitle of turn taking, turn allocation. In turn allocation, those where the current speaker selects the next speaker and those where the next speaker selects themselves. According to Sachs in Courthard in 1993, a current speaker can do 3 degrees of control over the next turn. The 3 degrees are A. The current speakers can select which speaker or participant will be the next speaker while still talking, but must then stop talking at the next TRP. The speaker can name the next speaker or allow to speaker with descriptive praise. If the current speaker selects the next speaker, he usually also select the type of next utterance by producing the first part of an adjacency pair, such as question or greeting. B. If current speaker A does not select the next speaker, he or she can simply to constrain the next utterance. And C. If current speakers does not select either option 1 or 2, he or she leave it to one of the other participant to continue the conversation by selecting him or herself. Duncan in 1973 suggested that the cues for speaker change can be grammatical, paralinguistic, or kinesic, or any combination of all those three. Duncan also mentioned that there are a set of 6 cues current speaker gives a turn signal. 1. Intonation, the use of any pitch level or terminal juncture combination. 2. Paralanguage, drawl on the final syllable or on the stressed syllable of the phonemic clause. 3. Body motion, determination of any hand gesticulation or the relaxation of a tense hand position. 4. Sociocentric sequences, the appearance of one of several stereotype expressions such as but, or something labeled sociocentric. It's according to Bernstein in 1962. 5. Paralanguage, a drop in paralinguistic pitch and or loudness in conjunctions with a sociocentric sequence. And the last, syntax, the completion of a grammatical clause involving a subject-predicate combination. Next, I will present about agency pairs. In adjacency pairs, conversational actions tend to occur in pairs. People speak of an exchange of opinions and an exchange of greetings because many conversational actions call for a particular kind of conversational response in return. Greetings and farewells typically call for another utterance of the same times. Other actions call for a different type of actions. There are invitations with acceptances or even rejections, congratulations with thanks, and overs with acceptances or even refusals. Such pairs of conventionally linked conversational actions are said to have two parts, a first part and a second part. The pairs are said to have conditional relevance. More formally stated, adjacency pairs are sequences of two utterances that are A. Adjacent, unless separated by an insertion sequence. B. Produced by different speakers. C. Ordered as a first part and second part. D. Typed so that a particular first part requires a particular second or range of second parts. For example, overs requires acceptances or rejections, greetings require greetings, and so on. Next, I will explain about pre-sequences. A pre-sequence occurs when some preliminary action is taken before initiating the first part of adjacency pair, and the preliminary action itself involves a adjacency pair. Before making a request, for instance, it often makes sense to check whether the other person has the item one wants. For example, the uh, the conversation between teacher and dolphin. Teacher said, Dolphin, do you think you know the answer of the question number 2? Dolphin say, yes sir. And teacher say, can you explain it to the class? To class then please. In this dialogue, in this conversation, the first line of teachers that Dolphin, do you think you know the answer of the question number 2? It is what we call pre-sequences. Next, I will explain about insertion sequences. Insertion sequence is a sequence of turns that intervenes between the first and second parts of an adjacency pair. For example, the conversation between Peter and Nancy. Nancy, would you like to dance with me? Is the floor slippery? No, it is fine. Then I'd be happy to. In that conversation, here turns 1 and 4 make up one adjacency pair, and turns 2 and 3 make up a second adjacency pair inserted between the two parts of the first pair. Next, I will explain about silence. Depending on where silence occurs in a conversation and its location in the conversational structure, it will be interpreted as a gap between turns elapsed in the conversation or a pause that is attributed to the designated speaker. A gap is silence at the TRP when the current speaker has stopped talking without selecting the next speaker, and there is a brief silence before the next speaker self-selects. A gap does not belong to anyone. A lapse is silence when no next speaker is selected and no one self-selects. The conversation comes to an end for at least a moment. A gap and a lapse can be distinguished from one another only in retrospect. A pause is silence when the current speaker has selected the next speaker and stopped talking, but the next speaker is silent. A pause is also silence that occurs within a participant's turn. A pause belongs to the person currently designated speaker. Next, I will explain about the last subtitle of turn taking, which is preference organization. In preference organization, when speakers have a choice between two conversational actions, one will typically be considered more usual, more normal than the other. According to Levinson in 1983, options occur as structurally simple turns are preferred second. This phenomenon is called preference. For example, in response to the first part of adjacency pair, some second part responses are preferred while others are dispreferred. Refusals of requests or invitations are nearly always dispreferred, while acceptances are preferred. Conversational actions that are not the preferred response are often conducted in a manner that display this. These preferred seconds are typically delivered when A. after some significant delay, B. with some preface marking their dispreferred status, often the particle well, C. with some account of why the preferred second cannot be performed. It's stated by Levinson, 1983. Next, I will explain about point C, mutual understanding as alignment. Alignment is displayed and adjusted not only in responses to an utterance but also in advance. Presentatives, such as disclaimers, I really don't know much about this, but are examples of such preposition alignment devices. Presequences do this too. Alignment is especially important at the openings and closings of conversation. Next, I will explain about point D, narratives and arguments. Extended discourse. Our example have been of a conversation where the turns are brief, but the lengthy stories and substantial arguments that sometimes occur in conversations can be examined with the focus and methods of conversation analysis too. It turns out that, counter to what we might expect, stories and other extended term structures in conversation are not simply produced by a primary speaker, but are jointly or interactively produced by a primary speaker together with other cooperating participants. It's stated by Knopfsinger in 1991. According to Knopfsinger in 1991, a conversational argument often consists of participants making arguments in the process of having one. The dynamic of both narratives and arguments can be understood by applying a knowledge of ordinary conversational practice and structures such as the turn-taking system, agency pair, sequences, the preference system, and repair. It's according to Knopfsinger in 1991. So that's all my explanation. That's all my presentation about conversational analysis in chapter 2. Thank you.